actually the TAM isn't half the internet, it's 100 billion agents. We're doing NitroSend, which is agent first. Actually, it can hurt when an opportunity comes to spend and grow. I'm still striking out 2/3 of the time, right? I can build whatever I want. This is the world's my oyster.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakout CEO podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Holman with Intellectual Strategies. We're a law firm that works with a bunch of startups and CEOs building things, and we don't get to tell their confidential information to you. So we bring cool guests onto the show who've also built their own startups and are often building second and third startups along the way. And they're sharing their experiences so that other peer CEOs can hear some of the insights and experiences that they've had and maybe learn some things to do in their own journeys. So today we've got George Hartley with us. George, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jeff. Good to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you. We just did our icebreaker segment, and you're telling me that you built a Tamagotchi. Is it Tamagotchi or Tamaguchi? I don't know which
Tamagotchi, yeah.
Okay, Tamagotchi. You're building a Tamagotchi thing with a Raspberry Pi, and I'm like, I have an engineering background, but I shifted pretty early on into law and got a business degree and some other stuff. And I'm always jealous of people who have those hard engineering skills, which I don't know if that's hard skills to you, but to me, it's like, I either don't have the skills or the patience to sit down and do that stuff, I think.
It's funny. It's like I was saying, I didn't look at a line of code. I threw it to Codex. I said, I've got this new Raspberry Pi with a screen and I want to build a little game for my two kids.
Yeah.
Give me some ideas. And so, went through a few things that would work and said, a Tamagotchi style thing would be, with some chore type games in there, and you earn coins. And then as you do your little chores and, you can swap that for prizes. And I'm like, yeah, let's do that. And so that was it. And then I'm like, give me a spec. So I got the spec, I throw it at Claude, plugged it in, and it built overnight. And the only direction I had to give it was this morning, the graphics sucks. So I said, okay, let's, I just threw it a couple of examples of like 90s Playboy pixel art. I said, just make it 90s Playboy pixel art and a picture or two of my kids and make sure it looks like them. And you did one loop through and the whole thing works and is built. They were playing it this morning. It was great.
That's so awesome. I love it. I wonder how, because I'm talking with CEOs who are building stuff, and we've seen this evolution from, building the hard way, building the long way, building the expensive way, to building with AI. And now as we talk about even the next generation, it was a Hugo and Stella, I think, were your kids, what are they going to be building in 20 years from now? Like, I can't even imagine how interesting it's going to be when they get to that point. So what a benefit they've got.
Something happened on the weekend, and like, this is a podcast, so this will be old news, but it's still blowing my mind. I can't stop thinking about it. The new GPT model, GPT-6 Astra, which is, in not for wider release yet, they threw that at a bunch of quantum physics and maths problems that have never been solved, and it solved 10 on the weekend. And these are problems that would, like they're saying, would win, a Fields Medal or, almost Nobel Prize level sort of discovery or kind of solve. It did 10.
Wow.
And the switch from these models are really smart people to, okay, these are way smarter than human beings. Yeah. It feels like that could happen, in weeks when this is released. And it's like, okay, then what happens? So are they doing maths? Are they building things that we can't even understand, that they just work? Yeah, it's really like it's so hard to know what the future looks like when you're like, things can be built that we don't understand the physics behind them. So yeah, it's a crazy time. It's an awesome time to be building stuff, but it's also like, what is 2031 going to look like?
Yeah, 5 years from now, that's a totally different world. With that in mind, how fast stuff is moving.
Yeah,
what is it that drives you? Because you've had You've had, I think you said Bluethumb and then SmarterMail,
Yep.
and now you're building NitroSend.
Yep.
Like as you build these and you kind of put it in the context of how fast technology is moving, what do you think it is that drives you personally to want to build the next thing?
I just, my favorite thing to do is to kind of create something from scratch in the world that I think is cool. Like that
Yeah.
is, and it's probably a pretty, like, I think that's pretty universal, but for me, my whole life, I've done stuff like that. Like I, I think about, I played music, um,
Hmm.
my whole childhood, and then throughout university, I was still playing in bands, and then I got a job and I didn't like that. And I actually went and was a musician, like just for years doing, that's all I did, produce music and played in bands and stuff, because it felt like I was creating something interesting that I
Yeah.
thought, should be in the world. And, it was a real putting something out that, um, I was proud of, that I thought was good, like from zero. And that's actually what drives me. And I had this point in my mid-20s where my music career just wasn't going that well, and I was, I was all right at
I hear
producing
they're
music.
hard.
Yeah. Yeah. It may have been a talent problem too, but like I was okay at producing music, but it just wasn't, I wasn't quite, I wasn't a rock star, or I wasn't quite where I wanted. And I was just, I was sort of in this place where I'm like, what else? I didn't know what else I wanted to do that I was good at, that I could give back to the world. And then I actually, I'd gotten an iPhone, and I think the book's behind me. And at the time, I was also reading the Jobs biography.
Okay.
And I was like, hang on, like I used to like making websites, and like I used to make it for
Yeah.
friends and,
Yeah.
bands and stuff. And I like that stuff. Like I liked, building technology stuff just as a hobby. And I'm like, shit, maybe I would like doing that as well. And I was about 25 or 6. And I'm like, oh, so I went back and I sort of quit everything, and I went back to study computer science. And I found my rejection letter from RMIT.
Oh yeah.
Because I have a terrible memory. I've got a memory like a goldfish. I can't remember anything that happens to me unless I write it down. And I found it the other day when we were moving house. Like, oh, I was rejected for my computer science thing. And then I remembered I actually went in and I'd sort of just convinced the assistant dean that I would be able to, it was a master's, so you're meant to be able to program, and I would be able to do it. Don't, like I've done
Wait,
this.
wait. So you got rejected first, but this is the same place where you ended up going because you just talked your way into it?
Yeah, yeah. And I talked my way into a master's. I got a master's with distinction in the end. I actually did all right. And Bluethumb, I built the first version of the app in the master's, and that was,
Okay.
featured by Apple, and it set us off on this path. And
Yeah.
um, but but I, I guess that's the other part of me, is I am persistent. I think I tend to, I do tend to work at things, um, even when they're a slog. But yeah, like it was a big turning point in my life, going to do to switch into building software. And I was really inspired by, I loved Apple as a brand, but I was just so inspired by that story, and like the iPhone
Mhm.
I fell in love with. And I'm like, I want to make apps. I want to make great software. And, I started doing it, and I absolutely adored it. And I'm like, well, I want to do this forever, I want to do
Yeah.
this till I die. So, and I still feel that way. I get up every morning, even, it's hard. It's hard doing startups, and
Sure.
you always have problems, but I still feel like the day after leaving high school, when I woke up and I knew I could do anything I bloody wanted, I have that feeling still, because I wake up and I'm like, I can build whatever I want. This is the world's my
Yeah.
oyster. So yeah,
I love it.
yeah, I love that about what I do.
I love that. Do you think your band experience that played into kind of your ability, your thought process to say, "Hey, a rejection letter is not a rejection. That's just like an invitation to go talk to the people." And like, where did that come from? Because when I was in engineering school, I took a few business classes, on the other end of the campus, right? And in engineering, it's prove the theorem, prove the theorems, or write down the derivations, and come to there's an answer, and you get partial credit for the work you do that's correct towards the answer. When I went over to the business side of campus and I was at some classes, it was, I couldn't believe like students were arguing with the teacher about why they should get points for questions that, from my perspective, they clearly got wrong. And the teacher eventually would be like, well, yeah, I think you're right. Here's some points. And I'm like, wait a second. This like blew my mind. And I like, so if I got a rejection letter at that point in time in my life, I would have said, well, it's a rejection. Like that's the answer. Like an engineer got an answer, but the business side of me would say, oh, a rejection. That's not an answer. That's just part of the conversation. Did music influence this, or how did this? Just a quick note about our guests. I host the Breakout CEO podcast to share behind the scenes insights from scaling businesses. As an attorney, I see the real challenges leaders face long before success becomes public. But client stories have to stay confidential. So we invite guest CEOs to share their own moments of struggle and success. I'm so grateful to our guests and my team at Intellectual Strategies for making this show possible. Now, let's get back to the show.
I've never thought about it that deeply, but absolutely, like trying to hustle an indie electronic band, is all no's.
Yeah.
And gigs and putting out releases and getting signed and all that. Yeah, it's very good grounding for enterprise sales or even just growing a startup, go to market. Like, having a band is I actually think the two most formative things for what I'm doing is probably training in a rowing eight. We had a good rowing eight, and being in bands because they're both like horrible to do, mostly in the grind of perfection and hard work, and it's just nothing feels good about
practice
the grind of it, and also with trying to grow an indie band, all the hustle stuff, but then in retrospect they're fantastic because you get somewhere and you feel like you've done something so good. And so there's sort of it's actually, I think about that as like where where I learned the kind of the persistent stuff for not stopping with building startups. It actually is those sort of experiences, I think.
That makes sense. And so you went to school at the place where you weren't supposed to go, but you talked your way into it, and you ended up building Bluethumb. Tell me a little bit about Bluethumb.
Yeah, Bluethumb is an online art marketplace. So it's Australia's biggest online art marketplace. Artists sell their original art. You can see a bunch behind me.
Yeah.
And it's it was we started in 2012. My brother, co-founder, and another guy, Phil, and we were all working jobs at the time. I was making apps at an app maker after uni. Actually, I think I was finishing uni. I'd got a job at this app maker. Okay. And again, I wanted to work there because they made great apps, and I went and I just knocked on the door. They weren't hiring for roles apart from devs. And I'm like, oh, can I do anything but that? Because I wasn't a very good dev.
Okay.
And they're like, no.
Nope, you're a dev if you want a job.
Yeah. And sort of look, I'll do anything. I'll work for $100 a day, design, marketing, whatever, and admin. And eventually they kind of said, all right, we'll try you for 2 days a week. And that, like, I managed to be useful enough. And then I was studying, I did some design. I became the UX designer, even though I was doing this dev course. And I loved that job. Like, it was the first job I'd ever actually loved. And we're making these great apps. And it was exactly what I'd hoped. These apps were super cool, and everyone I worked with was just so good and passionate and like very deep nerd tech. Every conversation was about something technical or some new thing, and it just felt amazing. And so that job, like, I adored that job and did that for a couple of years. And then, but we had an entrepreneurial streak, my brother and I. We always sort of wanted to do this stuff, and we bought a little email company on the side from flipper.com that we were running for money, like a little side hustle while we're doing this. literally just
Is Flipper, was that just like a buy a small business type of website?
It's literally FLI.
Yeah.
No, it's a marketplace for buying little online businesses. So
Okay.
we bought this little thing and we're sort of running it and growing it just for literally for money. Is interesting. And then Bluethumb came along and we were like, okay, we're running, we're at these jobs. We're like, oh, let's do a little online arts marketplace. We liked marketplaces, and we talked about doing a wine one, and I'd talked about doing a music one, but SoundCloud was really good. I couldn't see how we could not, what need that wasn't filling. But art didn't have anything, and Dad was a painter, and I, was good friends with some painters from school, and why don't we just kind of do, SoundCloud for art? And so we started doing that as a side hustle, and it got to this point where it sort of needed us to go full time, but we all had these other jobs, and I loved the job, and it was a really hard decision to leave, this app agency and go into the startup full time because I wasn't as much worried about the money, and I kind of thought maybe if things all went wrong, they'd probably have me back. But it was more about it's the only job I had ever loved, and anyway. It turns out I love growing startups. So that was the start of it. And we grew that. We raised some money, and that is still going. It's still selling art. It's sort of, it's got 30,000 Australian artists. It's I'm really proud of kind of what it's done. It's done over 100 million in sort of art sales, and most of that goes to the artists. So it's great. It's what it's done there is awesome. And
is that when you exited, or is that something that you still?
No, that's still going. So still kind of an owner and a director, but I stepped back from running that to do a SaaS company in the email space called SmarterMail in 2016.
Is this the one that you bought, or a later?
No, there's another one. So it's like it was similar to the one we'd bought, but this was purely for e-commerce. And so it was sort of around the insight of, Shopify and big commerce stores, often they're run by small teams who may not have experts in email marketing, but they have all the data. And so can we build a kind of email tool that sort of lets them use all of that data that's coming through from their customers and products and everything else, and to do better email marketing than just kind of spray and pray, even if they're not an expert to set it up. So I was trying to be.
So this wasn't an agency where you provided services. This was a tool that the e-commerce companies themselves would then subscribe to, and it would help them do in-house email marketing better.
Correct. Yeah. Exactly. Right.
Smarter.
Smarter.
Makes sense.
SmarterMail. Yeah. Didn't help that probably, Phil and I were doing it. I'd say we're both maybe slightly dyslexic. And so we're like, we'll do SmarterMail without the E because the domain is free. And then from that point on, for the next 7 years, people, when you're on an onboarding call, would look at it and go like, SmarterMail.
You're like, this is easy. It's smarter. Come on.
Yeah, I know. You learn these lessons. That was a good journey. Had its ups and downs, but we raised seed on that and grew it, and we were acquired towards the end of 2022 by a fund in the USA called Relay Commerce, who sort of roll up e-commerce software companies.
And that was still a pretty good time for valuations for those types of businesses.
Yeah. In retrospect, the timing was good because you never know. But it did feel like when we started, because we had someone approach us early 22 to buy it. And so we thought, let's run a proper process here. We actually had a SaaS sort of broker type, small kind of consultancy help run it from the USA that I think really helped us. Selling a company is one of those things you don't do much. You might do once or twice or something. It's like buying a house, or I don't know. And so you're not going to be an expert unless you're in the game. So I was very glad we went with those guys. And yeah, they did a great job because it was a hard, long process. And the first guys, we signed an exclusive LOI or whatever. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, got to the end.
Locked you in for that period.
Yes, but locked you
Yeah.
in, locked for the DD, and I think they got maybe 60 days. I can't remember now, but they locked us in once that, and then it was like, oh, we don't quite have the money. There was an excuse at the end.
Oh,
The numbers hadn't changed, but it was they sort of were a no, and they're allowed to be, but that really, that was like took
you're like,
took
why are we still locked in then if you're not gonna if you're not gonna
well,
pull the
yeah.
trigger on this? Yeah.
So it ended up being a longer, harder process, but the outcome was good.
Okay.
So yeah, but
Good.
at the end of that, oh man, yeah, I was pretty burnt out.
Were you? Were you able to take some time off before you jumped into your next venture?
Um, yeah. Well, I went back and joined Bluethumb.
Mm-hmm.
To sort of I'd been helping on product the whole time. I went back to sort of head up product, and then stepped in with as sort of co-CEO alongside my brother for a year or two. So I probably didn't take a big enough break, I would say, that I should have, in retrospect. But yeah, you sort of it's hard to know at the time how much time
Yeah.
off, whatever you need. I did go and do a Vipassana meditation, one of those silent ones for
Oh
10
yeah.
days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is
that
that
was in.
when you started, because you mentioned in our icebreaker that you do meditation on a daily basis. Is that when you started doing it, or were you already doing meditation before that?
No, I started meditating maybe a decade ago. I was actually, I
Okay.
think it was a Tim Ferriss. I like
Oh,
his podcast. Yeah,
yeah.
he's one of those kind of turbo guys who's a mile a minute, and I remember him saying meditation really helps him kind of focus on his priorities, and I'm like, oh, I should try that. Yeah.
Well, and you also had your first. I think you said your oldest is 4, so you would have had your first kid sometime around that same period, right? So that you were busy selling a business, having a baby, and being like, I imagine there was some stress there where you're like, well, do I take time off or what happens?
Yeah, that's right. I think I had a 1-year-old, and
Okay,
yeah. So yeah, I went and did a Vipassana silent meditation for the 10-day one, and yeah, it was good. It, that was hard, but I came out feeling pretty refreshed, I'd say.
yeah. So at least a little bit of a break before jumping back into Blue Thumb, and you're there. You said you're there for a few years at Blue Thumb, helping out,
Yeah,
co-CEO type thing.
yeah, probably another 2 years with there running it, and it it sort of it had a massive run up throughout COVID. Obviously, a lot
Mm,
of companies that were selling stuff for homes or whatever. It really, I
yeah.
think it 5x'd,
Okay.
which was good for a startup that's been going for 6 or 7 years. So that was awesome, and then suddenly the growth was so much harder to get after that.
Really.
Yeah, and because it was like an Australian art startup, um, the the market itself has a bit of a kind of a cap on it without expanding into other categories or other countries. And so, that next big leg up of growth, we were sort of pushing at for those 2 years, and we never really cracked, I'd say. And so I think after 2 years of that, you sort of start losing just momentum yourself.
Mhm.
So my brother and I stepped back from Blue Thumb end of last year,
Okay.
and that was when I properly had some time off for the first time since 2012, I'd say.
Wow.
And it was a magical time to have to do whatever I wanted, because December last year was when AI really turned a corner to, okay, this is as good as a dev.
Yeah.
It was this, like, there was this point, and I was just starting to get into kind of poking around in Claude properly, and I had all this time. Um, So yeah, it was pretty awesome. And what
How did you,
actually happened? Yeah.
yeah. I was just, go ahead and finish that statement. So,
Well, yeah, I was just going to sort of talk about. So we've now, the sort of we've got the band back together, the SmarterMail guys,
yeah,
and we're doing NitroSend, which is like agent first full stack email marketing.
yeah,
And it came about because it was during summer. I have a book website that I like. I actually bought it many years ago. It's a bit like Bluethumb, but it's kind of ebooks
hmm,
that authors can put up and readers can download free. And I built a little e-reader over summer as well. So kind of like Kindle Unlimited, but basically all free. So authors who just want distribution and a big reading audience and
okay.
it's called Obuko. And I was like, oh, well, I'll tinker on this. I'll grow this. It makes a bit of money. I'll add some features and do this for now.
And sorry, what was it called? eBooker? Is that what you said?
Obuko.com.
Obuko. Okay.
Yeah. It's got 850,000 readers signed up. It's got a big reader base
Yeah.
and a few thousand authors. And I was sort of tinkering on this, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a one-man thing. And I'm like, sweet, I'm going to automate the whole thing with Claude. So I was automating my content, my SEO, my outbound to authors, my admin and email. I'm like, I'm building skills and running everything from my agent.
hmm
And email is a vital channel because it's got almost 1 million members, and it's like the easiest sort of way to really communicate and grow with them. And
Right.
automating the email was clunky. I'm like, God damn it! So I'm using these tools that I know about, that kind of the normal ESP tools, and most of them didn't even have MCP connectors, and the ones that did, you couldn't do the right stuff. And I'm like, why is every channel but email like up to date with AI? Why can't I do this from my agent? And I spent all January it'd be so annoying because I'd get so much done in every other channel, and then I'd have to go to email and like have to make all these changes for an hour or two.
That's the big blocker there. Why do you think that was? Is it the email service providers, like, they know the value of it and they kind of want to hold on to it, or?
The bigger incumbent ones have a, it's a kind of old school established channel. So the bigger incumbent ones, the ones I was trying, I tried 3 of them. They have a massive feature set. So,
Mhm.
you have so many different features, and you might have 1 million users using them as well.
Yeah.
And so to kind of re-engineer that whole thing to be completely agent first, like that runs from MCP, so that someone can sit and not even really look at their UI and say,
Yeah.
oh, I want to set up flow, nice design flows for my 4 different types of users. I want to do weekly newsletters. I want to do 30 different transactional emails, and I want it all to look on brand and be in my voice. To kind of rebuild that is kind of almost an impossible task.
Mm.
So that's kind of where I got to with why the incumbents sucked. And then I'm like, oh, I don't know. So I called up Cam, who was the CTO from SmarterMail last time, like, mate, you got a solution here? What do you think? And then I was like, no, but it sounds like something doing, because he had some side projects. And I called up my brother, and I'm like, Ed, maybe we should kind of do SmarterMail, but completely from an agent, like, because when we sold, we actually weren't allowed to build in the
Sure.
space for a
Yeah.
while. So we wouldn't even be able to do this before. And it's like, yeah, yeah. And so Cam was like, I reckon I can get an MVP up in 2 weeks.
Oh, really?
And they're like, okay, a little longer than that. But yeah, we basically just kicked it off in February from that, because we all had side projects to do. And we got to dog food it throughout March, like with our stuff.
Hmm.
And then in April, we opened it up to friends who were game enough to like try kind of fairly buggy software. And yeah, it works. It's like for anyone who's done content marketing, it's like there's a lot of grind to it. There's a lot of just rote work. There's a lot of pushing pixels, and yeah, it feels like you're wasting your life, especially if you're a content marketer. So yeah, we're kind of relieving people. We're setting them free from that, which is a nice feeling.
So who are the people that so you use this for your book company?
Yeah.
Who are the people that that really are the ideal user for this type of agent first email marketing system?
The ones who are kind of locking on it quickly right now, and the ones who are sort of upgrading to paid accounts and etc., all that stuff, are mostly startups, and mostly they're kind of folks who are building a lot with AI.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, it's sort of it's fairly broad in that it's you know if you're a startup kind of scaling in kind of any space that generally you're sitting in Claude or Codex or like VS Code with these plugins running, and you want to like a solution to like do this well from that. So all of them, you know, everyone who's sort of tried it from anything like that has kind of started using it. We haven't had any churn yet at all.
Oh, really?
Um, yeah, well, we only took the covers off properly in June, but gone 0 to 1,200 kind of customers, very quickly, and the sending volume's growing very quickly. So yeah, that's our current kind of ICP, I would say. We have some people who sort of do content and newsletters, but we, there's a lot of good options there as well, and folks like Beehive and whatever,
Right.
they really do that newsletter thing very well. So we're sort of zooming in more on, people building startups. And the funny thing that's happened has been we've had all these requests we never had in 13, in 10 years of doing email. We've had requests for like constant requests for AI outbound. And it never really came through much in the others. But they all, because AI can kind of personalize a bit better, but outbound where you're finding leads, it's that horrible spray and pray, it's
Yeah.
like, it reflects badly on your brand, even if you're spamming people, all that stuff. Like these people are trying to build a great brand as well as their startup. And it's like, I want to do this better. Can you
Yeah.
do it? And so we weren't expecting to build that. And so we're building it right now. We're going to ship it because it, it, it's email and it's something we can do better. So yeah, like let's do it.
What kind of lessons did you guys take away having the same team that had already built and successfully traversed the journey with SmarterMail? What did you take from SmarterMail? Not literally, but what kind of lessons and takeaways did you glean from your experience there, and that helped you do NitroSend as a company better?
Yeah, there's quite a few. And I put it in a little set of values actually.
Hmm.
Bluethumb as well, like, and like to list them off, like number one is deep pockets, well capitalized. Like we always were proud of running lean and that Australian mindset of like raise a small amount, get profitable.
Yeah.
But actually it can hurt when an opportunity comes to spend and grow. You don't want to risk it. So it can mean you don't take enough risk
Yeah.
and miss those opportunities. You'll fail more, but you can have more shots at goal quicker to get the big growth. So be better capitalized, number one.
Okay.
So yeah, we raised a pre-seed round on a pitch deck, sort of like, which I wouldn't have had the gumption to do the last two times. So, and we'll probably do a seed round sooner because the numbers are good. Why not?
Yeah.
The other one is kind of high integrity team partners and investors only. You know, if a customer is just going to be too hard or whatever, we're just going to be a bit harder on that
Just
and fire them or whatever.
filter them
Same
out.
same
Yeah.
with same with investors and everyone else. Just set a higher bar on that. Even if it means saying no to some people. And the the last one is kind of, it's our first value, and it's like, you know patiently improve the core and also invent the future. And like
Hmm.
I was trying to sort of succinctly say, we want to build something great by constantly improving the main critical path, but also we want to work on bigger moonshots that may not work concurrently. And
Balancing out that time and the effort
yeah,
across
and
those
being
two.
okay with that, like you inventing the future, some stuff will fall over. That's
Yeah.
fine. Like it can just building a SaaS, you can get so stuck in I have to fix all these small bugs and I have to have feature parity across other competitors and all this stuff.
Mm.
You can get really dragged completely onto that first channel and not have enough moonshots. And so this time we sort of having a very like a, a very thought through balance of stuff that is building for what may not be getting asked for right now by customers, but we think is going to be super cool in a few months, plus improving the core.
Yeah, and if you got a stable base or stable enough, then why not add some of those moonshots to it? But what are some of the things that you thought you would be able to accomplish with your team going into NitroSend that have maybe not worked out the way that you anticipated? Maybe weren't as easy as you thought they would be coming into it.
Honestly, the hardest thing, or the thing that hasn't panned out yet that I thought would have, so by now, is getting into the main partner app stores.
Hmm.
And if you look at our pre-seed deck and our growth plan, probably 3 or 4 channels, and one very important one was, well, we must be a kind of an official listed app in some of in these partner stores.
Yeah, and we're talking Apple's App Store and
Well, yeah, so that's the equivalent, but the sort of the AI providers,
got it.
because that's that people are using their AI agent and they have official kind of plugins and these
Yeah.
things, and getting officially listed, you suddenly have all this visibility and a big funnel. And so my assumption was it would just be a linear process. You apply and everything's checked and you're approved, but that actually hasn't panned out. And so, yeah, that, it's just going to take more work. So yeah, that's been the biggest kind of thing that hasn't gone to plan, I'd say.
Is it changing what you design, or is it just a matter of, hey, we're keep designing to the plan, and we'll eventually add this piece to the business? Or do you actually have to do you actually look at your roadmap and say, well, if this isn't going to happen yet, or for some time, like, we're actually going to build differently or make different decisions because of that?
Yeah, we had to adjust, because the assumption was, for non-technical users, we'd get in and it'd be a one click.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't, we're not approved yet. So we basically have built an agent onboarding skill itself. So if you are in whatever agent, you're in GPT or Claude or Codex, and you say,
Mm-hmm.
I want to use NitroSend, your agent can find the onboarding skill that is kind of listed, and we've listed that on other directories and whatnot, and it can self-onboard it by reading that skill and kind of connect. So that is the workaround, which works really nicely. We had to ship that and then SEO that. The only part we're missing, I guess, is the discovery now of being in an app
Yeah.
store, which I'm absolutely confident it'll happen. Not rejected, we're just not approved. But that discovery, I was kind of assuming we'd be in there now, and that'd be a funnel. So yeah, just still waiting on that. But yeah, we did have to work around it. We had to make sure that an agent can kind of self onboard. I guess the other thing working in our favor has been the agents have gotten so much smarter that they can kind of just work it out now. Like back when we first shipped in March or whatever, they weren't working it out, and now it's just like worked out, done.
And it makes me think, because I think I read something about your, and I'm going to get this wrong, but on your website for NitroSend, something about almost like an interfaceless email, right? So you're not relying on the conventional interface to do the email. And it makes me wonder, as you talk about this, the AI platform, app stores or whatever they're called. I'm not sure what they're called. As you talk about those, I'm like, that's really funny because it seems like we shouldn't need an app store for these. Like you ought to just be able to type into Claude or Chat or something and be like, hey, I want this, and it should just pull up anything and everything, whether it's actually in the store or not. I don't know if these platforms have just backlogs of things that they've got to approve and review, and so the number must be astronomical of everybody who's trying to get in at this point in time. But
Yeah.
it begs the question, at what point will the app store interface itself just go away? Kind of like, the email interface might be going away at some point.
I think exactly that, and that's is probably part of their thinking as well. Like that, they've built app stores, but it's probably a temporary thing. Like
Yeah.
it'll be they'll just be appearing as widgets within the chat interface if they're not already. I'm sure any day. So yeah, it feels like a temporary mid step anyway. But yeah, it was just we'd sort of banked on getting in there and having that kind of funnel of discoverability, but it the actual connection and working and onboarding, is all solved by AI anyway. So yeah.
Creativity loves constraints. We've been talking about a lot of creativity here, so this is an opportunity to look at what you're doing, and maybe there's a better way. I don't know. App stores are probably the easy way to go, but maybe there's this probably causes your team to sit and say, hey, how do we do the SEO? How do we go out and get more customers? How do we build the base without waiting on or relying on the app store itself to be there? So have you guys found some surprising channels or successes doing it the unconventional way?
Yeah, well, it's nice having email and outbound to dog food, so we're using that, which is good and working.
Yeah.
And we're actually onboarding affiliates at the moment. So folks
Okay.
who might who are sort of in the AI space with an audience, so on YouTube or even on X. And yeah, we just set up a sort of an affiliate program where if they want a referral link, they can kind of refer us to their audience because they're actually a good user of our product too.
Yeah.
If they're collecting emails, it's a great product for them to use versus whatever else they're using. So it's nice, yeah. So that's
Super
good. We've
warm
signed up 100
referrals.
affiliates. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're starting to get that. And agencies has been another one. We got a couple of agencies discover us off X, and like the ability to set up a client and admin and kind of optimize clients and flick between them as well. We built early the ability to switch between your other
Mm.
brands and do it all from your agent.
Okay.
That's like just a massive time saver for, marketing, email type, even web dev agencies.
Yeah.
So that's been a really great early channel. And then, long term, we are building for sort of SEO and GEO discovery and ranking, and a little bit of a black box, I believe, on the GEO, but we're doing the stuff, the right stuff we can to make sure we're doing okay with SEO, and long term, we believe that'll be an important channel.
When your team sits down and talks about where you're headed, without going into, of course, any confidential information,
Mm.
what are the highlights that your team looks forward to in the next 2 or 3 or 4 years?
Years.
Is that too long? What do they expect by, let's see, it's August. What do they expect by mid-September, October?
So yeah, I think we should have an office here hopefully, and a few more hires by
Mhm.
September. October we should have a US presence. So the plan is to open a little, one person office hopefully October,
Mhm.
and the USA is the focus for where our customers are, and also for when we're raising money. So growing a bigger presence over there quickly, and like we just kind of, what was it? Microsoft riding the bear. It's like back in the early days. It's like just kind of trying to hang on and ship the right stuff for what I talked about with this. It feels like the world is shifting on its axis right now, and very soon, our original framing was, okay, cool. I reckon half the internet needs email, and I think everyone at some point will switch to running whatever they're doing from an agent. It's just such a better way to administer and grow a company and a website.
Yeah.
So we think our TAM is kind of half the internet, maybe.
Okay.
And then we started building agentic inboxes, so agents they could onboard and agents can now create an account, start sending without a human in the loop. They're like, oh, actually, they need an inbox as well. Agent one at nitrosend.com, and then they're going to do one-to-one on outbounds. Like, okay, but then what happens when agents are creating their own agents to build stuff, and instead of 8 billion people, there's 100 billion agents running companies?
Yeah.
They all need this. So I'm like, oh, actually, the TAM isn't half the internet. It's 100 billion agents, and half of that who need email until something better is invented.
Yeah.
So, okay, if that is happening, how do we make sure we're a useful tool for that and kind of ride that wave? So that's why I was sort of laughing about the next few years, because I don't know what the world looks like. So I just know that, I don't know, but my belief is that this sort of this agentic kind of explosion is about to happen. I don't know how or what it looks like. And okay, let's build the best smart pipes for them to kind of communicate.
Yeah.
And so, it's kind of exciting and daunting.
Yeah, I hadn't thought of it that way before. And you mentioned earlier, I think when we were talking the icebreaker about getting together with friends and other people and talking to them about what's going on and issues or solutions or whatever. I haven't heard this concept of it's a TAM expansion, effect here where it's not whatever how many billion. It's not 3 billion people. It's 100 billion agents plus 3 billion people now that is your market. Are other CEOs talking about it like that? I mean, this is the first time I've heard of somebody say that and say, "Well, our TAM, you have to rethink TAM now. It's not what you thought it was."
No, I don't hear that much from other CEOs, because most of them are in the weeds a bit. We get to do more thinking because we're fresher to it.
Yeah.
But no, but it's the, like I said, that Astra kind of discovery on the weekend. It is happening. This is like the next set of AI is going to be smarter than people. And if you tell it, hey, I want to grow my business, I want to do this, it's going to say, right, well, then to do that, we'll probably need some different agents that are going to do outbound, blah, 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 spin them up, how they're going to communicate. It's like, it just makes complete sense. And so I'm talking like a 10x TAM expansion in, like, I don't know, 18 months, 2 years or something. It's not 20 years away. It is
Right.
like, it seems imminent. And so, it's like, what do we build? What's the most important thing to build now? But also, like, for a few months ahead, to like, if we genuinely think agentic inboxes are needed for agents to do this stuff, we're not really getting much user pull right now. There's no one who's building a 10-person startup saying, hey, I need 10 agent inboxes. No one's asking us for that, but we've just shipped it because I kind of think that it will be useful. But maybe it won't, and maybe it's something slightly different. And so, but I genuinely believe it's, there's a big explosion about to happen in the opportunities for this stuff. And it's it's exciting.
Yeah, no, you're making. I mean, a lot of people are doing the same, not the same. They're doing, they're thinking about it kind of similarly with, we don't hire people as much. We hire smart people, but then we spin up agents to do a lot of the tasks in the business, and eventually there'll be some, we'll call it an agent recruiting business, right? That where you just say, hey, I'm going to start a company, and instead of hiring 6 people, it's going to spin up 25 agents, and you've now got a fully staffed business with agents that, I mean, I don't know.
I was thinking that earlier this year, but my thing has changed a little bit on that.
Hmm.
Because like we're we've actually
Because
hired someone. We're trying to
you're
hire
in the
2 more
details here.
people, and it's like I actually think it's more like when I don't know computer spreadsheets came about. It didn't mean there were less analysts and accountants
Yeah.
and finance people. Actually kind of enabled a way bigger economy there, and there's probably a lot more. And it's like, zero accounting, you get out of the written ledger into QuickBooks and Zero is probably, there's actually more white collar people doing this stuff than there were before, less agrarian stuff, and actually way more. And I kind of think businesses won't have less employees. They'll just be doing like turbo amount of stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
maybe I presented it the wrong way. I,
but it was
yeah.
my thinking too. I'm like, oh, we can do so much. We're going to be a 5-person startup and get to like $1 billion revenue. I'm like, no, that's actually, I don't, I've changed my thought on just recently. I think actually, no, it's probably, probably means actually hiring more people for where it works, and an abundant opportunity. I just,
Maybe it's be better, maybe it's move faster, maybe it's one of those as opposed to
yeah,
replacing
and
people
invent
with
more stuff.
agents.
Like, the internet was someone's invention, or like Berners-Lee's or whatever it is. I forget his
Yeah.
name. But like,
A/B
yeah, like,
test stuff, like,
yeah, more stuff will be like everywhere.
yeah. Wow, this is cool. I, just like kind of how we started out talking about the Tamagotchi, over the overnight Tamagotchi build for your kids. It's cool hearing about all the stuff you're doing and how you're thinking about things. When I asked about years, you're like years. And we're talking weeks and months, maybe hours or days. Um, Stuff is just moving so fast with people that and you've seen this, across different companies, from the agency you started at to Bluethumb to SmarterMail, or SmartRMail, whatever we want to call it, right? To SmarterMail to NitroSend. Like, you've been through the rounds here. You've had the benefit of working with a team a couple times. Um, for somebody else who is on this journey, and they're looking at maybe they're listening to this episode and they're saying, man, I really like listening to what George has done. How do I, like, what's a good takeaway for them to add to their, to their skill set, that they can maybe start thinking the way you're thinking, or, you know uh building something in a little bit different way? What advice would you give to somebody who's trying to go the same path as you are?
It's really is it's kind of easy to say and hard to do, but like the three things I kind of think are, if I'm speaking to someone who hasn't, who has an idea and hasn't started yet or whatever, generally I just say start, just start, do it.
Take action. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll learn it. The best thing you can do is start. Sometimes people are sort of in the early stages, a chat with and whatever, and they ask, "Oh, should I quit my job and launch this thing?" And my experience was better. It was better to do it concurrently for a little while and maybe go a
Mhm.
little slower, just because you have less pressure on the thing you're trying to get going. So yeah, just I don't know. In general, it'd be like whatever you're doing, start the other thing and try. And like I said earlier, I like talking to people who are doing things.
Yeah.
It's just I find it inspiring and helpful, and like often some of those the growth wins, trying different strategies and channels and that stuff. Often you learn stuff that's worked that way. So yeah, talk to people, anyone who's doing something interesting.
And for somebody who's further along the path and they're like
Yeah.
working with a team,
Yeah.
they're running in, they've had some of that success,
Mm.
building traction, releasing their product, whatever it might be, who runs into a wall, a
Yeah.
little bit different scenario than the,
Sure.
founder trying to start up. What would you say to that person at that kind of breaking stage, if you will?
Hit those plateaus and problem stuff plenty of times. And I'm not sure I can generalize a way that's worked out of it. Certainly, it's important, like I said, to don't run out of money. So,
Yeah.
especially for startups, like, the two big killers of startups generally are founders breaking up, pissing each other off so bad, or just running out of money. And so, definitely keeping an eye on that and doing everything you can, assuming that you're one of these people that won't just kind of eventually stop when it gets hard. Like, you do have to keep an eye on cash flow and optimize, and like, think about thinking about things like pricing and margins if you're doing physical
Yeah.
stuff or whatever. Otherwise, how have we got out of?
I was just say while you're thinking about how to get out of growth ruts, what you're saying, I really like it. It brings us back to what you were saying before about kind of that balance between you got to have kind of a stable business, keep it going, but think about the moonshots, along the way, and being able to balance the two of those. I think was maybe you expressed it differently as one of your core values, being able to do that. But
Yeah,
don't run out of money. Get that stable base built so you
yeah,
can take some big swings, right?
absolutely. Like, sometimes, you know, you hear these founder stories of like, oh, we launched and we had exponential growth and it was great, and the reality is that that doesn't exist really. Like, and is you need to give yourself enough time to find the wins or work out the tweaks. um that said, like, I haven't seen that many full pivots work either. It's sort of like, generally you need to be in the right
Mhm.
ballpark of building something pretty good for customers, have some be smart enough to work out an angle and an improvement on something that exists, whatever. But,
Yeah.
like, you need, you need to have enough runway and cash and whatever to be able to have some stuff not work for you. You can't bet the farm on like something unproven as a moonshot, in my opinion. Like, maybe you can, but I would just, you don't want to, get rid of your full margin of safety there.
Yeah.
Because, like, I have a million bright ideas. I wake up and I'm in the shower. I'm like, yes, I'm a genius. Like, I know what's going to give us the next kind of kick up. And I go in, I tell the team, like, guys, I saw this in a different category. It's like, listen to this. And some of them go, oh, okay, yeah, cool, we could try it. And I'm like, no, and I reckon of all my like strokes of genius, my hit rate is probably 1 in 4 to even move the needle. Like,
Okay.
you know, maybe 1 in 3 of these, you ship something or you try a channel or whatever, maybe 33% success rate that you can see a change in the
Yeah.
metric. And so, even though for 13 years, I'm 100% sure this is great and going to work and I know what I'm doing, I'm still striking out 2/3 of the time, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you want to be able to kind of like ship those things quickly and learn how to learn how to test the smallest amount on this idea to break out. You just got to learn how to do it as quick as you can. Get real evidence that it works. Rubber hits the road when someone gives you some money on something new or whatever. So
I wonder if that doesn't answer the question that we paused on there with how to tackle a growth blockage, right? Uh, find a meaningful pivot, uh, make small changes, test fast, and find the way around or through that thing. Does that work? Does that summarize what we were going where we're going?
what generally works is 1% improvement on something that is working for you, basically. That I
Yeah.
saw the founder of Instagram say, how they built a really good product was they actually just would talk to users or look at users and say, what's the best thing about Instagram? And whatever the best thing was, that's what they would try and improve. They'd just focus on that strength and 1% better that, because it's so easy to try and build everything else and fill in your weak points. And so, for us, generally, we've grown these things through patience on small improvements, and my genius moonshots, don't work often and very occasionally do.
Occasionally, that's all you need. Well, George, it's been fantastic having you on the show. Hearing your story, getting your insights, and I've got a few takeaways myself that I've got to go re-listen and write these down for my own benefit. But I'm sure the audience has taken away some insights too from your story. So it's really a pleasure to have you on here and be able to talk with you about your business and your own story.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. And for those of you in our audience who joined us today, thanks again for coming and listening to the Breakout CEO podcast. Be sure to follow or subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. And if you enjoy the show, a rating or a review goes a long way. Our mission is to promote the stories of breakout CEOs in scaling SaaS, e-commerce, and tech companies to equip peer CEOs with valuable perspectives and confidence. Thanks again for joining us on this episode of The Breakout CEO. I'm Jeff Holman, and I'll see you next time.